I came back to Oregon to live a simple life and was looking for a place to have a teepee. This is the roof of the studio. I located this 2-acre piece of property and convinced the owners that I could live here in a simple manner. That's my doorbell. When you come off the hill, you ring that. You can find out where I am. And so for 25 years, I've rented this 2-acre piece for $100 a year. You can see the little circle lawn here. That's where the teepee was for about 3 years. And then I built a little 9x12 dome after the teepee years. And then I lived down there in mountain tents for a few years. And then I built a little square building here, kind of a little beach shack. And off the back of that building, I made a little round room, an underground room as a bedroom. And what happened was the little square building got robbed and they took all my cameras and everything, and I was really bummed. And so I just removed this building and I kept the little round room and put a door on it, and that's been my home ever since. My friends always kind of laughed at me when I said this, but I said all along that what I wanted to do was to be 12 years old again. Yeah, it's a little tight to get in here, but you can just... When I was 10 or 12 years old, the world was a magical place, and meadows were something to crawl through and explore.
Why so small?
I don't know, I just like building little things, right? Just like a little fort. Yeah. I built little forts always when I was a kid. I just kind of kept building forts and making them nicer and nicer so that I could actually live in them. And that's really what this is like.
Wow, it's great.
Yeah, see a skylight that you can open or close. So at night I just leave it open. That's like a homemade little... I just... Really nice. I leave it like that at night so the air circulates. I built houses for about 5 years and learned how to build walls and everything. And when I built this, I just built this round wall with 2x8s on edge, went around, and then on the top I put 2x4s on edge nailed together all the way across. So it's super solid roof. And then built the skylight in it as I was going across. And then it's all waterproof with heavy-duty plastics. And really the only thing that happens in here is the ants like to eat the pine boards. And so I had to put these little black ant traps because they want to eat it. And you can see there's places where they've actually chewed through. And I had to spray a little poison in there and then put some of this silicone in there. But that's really the only thing that happens here. It's never leaked. You are underground mostly, so it's really cool in the summer and easy to heat in the winter. This is a little ceramic heater that will blow heat, but when you come in the winter, so say it's 30 degrees outside, in this room, because it's underground, it's about 50 degrees, because the ground always stays at 50 degrees. So I'm only heating from 50 up to 65, instead of if a house is sitting out on the plains and the wind's blowing against it, it's going to be 30 degrees in that house. So it's really easy to heat in the winter. And then on a hot summer day, you come in, open this door, and it's like it's air conditioned in here, because it's like 55. So it's sort of a natural, I think that's why animals live underground. There's hardly any cooking. I'll maybe just cook rice on a hot plate. That's really the only thing I cook on that, maybe a can of soup once in a while, but all the other stuff is just no cooking.
Because you eat a lot more raw things, or?
Yeah, I eat raw vegetables and fruits, the occasional egg. I eat cereal a lot. This is my kind of a mixed cereal that I mix myself. Yeah. Peanuts, crackers and cheese. You know, again, kind of like how you would eat if you were backpacking.
I mean, a cutting board and,
yeah,
like literally.
The cutting board goes there. I learned when I had the hut, I made a wooden little table, a lap table, which is pretty common now. And then I didn't have to have a table. I just really like editing everything down and having the least amount of stuff as possible. I'm constantly trying to figure out how to get rid of things. Like you're looking at all my clothes right there. And I've got way too many shirts. Look at all these shirts I got. That's now the bedroom. This is a window door, so I can actually go out that if I need to.
Do you do that because of just feeling, not claustrophobic, but do you feel like you need an outlet?
Well, if there was ever a fire in here, it would be good to be able to get out through there.
But it doesn't feel, I actually don't feel at all claustrophobic or
I've never felt claustrophobic in here. I don't know if it's the ceiling at an angle or what, but see, you can't even stand up in here. People are like, oh, well, I couldn't live in a place I couldn't stand up in.
Yeah.
But you just crawl through just like that.
And do you spend much time in there?
Just sleeping, pretty much. Yeah. So this used to roll up and be my chair as well as my bed. I've slept on a what is that, about a 2-inch pad for many years, and that's what works for me, is that thin of a pad. So.
And so again, not a sacrifice, just kind of what you like.
Yeah, it's like, it seems like everything in my life is simplified, but I don't really like beds. I don't like sofas, chairs. But you know, it's kind of cool because it's like my little gallery. I got to put some photos in there that I did, my little paintings. It's kind of neat. I've gotten to make it into my little gallery and put my favorite books in here. Yeah, I'm sure the Hobbit's up there somewhere. And a lot of simple living, a lot of train hopping. I've hopped trains. I mean, I really have done kind of a hobo's life, sort of like a neo-hobo or something, right? Because I've hopped freight trains and sort of like a hobo, but a classy hobo, maybe. I'm just totally normal, but I live this simple way. More like a surf bum, you know? How about a surf bum?
A surf bum.
Yeah. I mean, I always was building forts. Then I built this log cabin when I was in junior high school. I mean, clear back then, I wanted to live in a tree. I wanted to carve out a tree and live in it, right? Because I'd read that in a book called My Side of the Mountain. And then I found the Hobbit book, and when I was probably 15, I actually dug a hole in the ground and threw some plywood on top and went in there, and it was just a dirty hole, you know. But the dream was always to live like this. Underneath that is the wooden roof with all the plastic and flashing, metal flashing around that skylight so it doesn't leak. And then I just put dirt back on there.
There's no issue as far as like the weight or anything like that up there?
No, no. And you know, the deer, there's a deer trail right up there. They sleep on it at night. You can hear them, about 4 in the morning, you can hear the deer run across that trail. So they're basically running over the top of my house.
Wow. Do you worry about, even the legality of it, the permitting, or is it because it's so small, no one thinks
well,
about it?
initially I had to go through the county and the city too, because there's electric line brought down.
Oh.
And I have a pole up there, and they approved it. They also approved, the city council approved this composting toilet 25 years ago. So I'm kind of grandfathered in, and I don't, as you can see, there's no junk cars, or I have like piles of trash around. I keep it really pristine, and so there isn't anybody complaining. And if I had trashed the place and people were complaining, they'd probably come and kick me out. And then this is the outhouse, a composting toilet outhouse. That was one of the first things that I built. And it just has a 5-gallon bucket that you put dirt in type composting outhouse. It works really good. It's also my little tool shed. I keep all my tools in there. And it's kind of an art gallery. It's the only real space I have to hang anything. But that was one of the first buildings that I made. And then this is just a little container for the dirt. I keep dirt in there, and that's how I put dirt over there.
Everything just fits in so well with the landscape.
Yeah, that's my deal. Is I like to be like a squirrel and make it just as natural as possible without any man-made things around. This is an underground studio I built about 8 years ago because my little magazine, I needed a copy machine to make the magazines, and so I built this little underground room with all recycled wood that I got for free. These bricks, these stones are from the Main Street project that they did uptown, that they were throwing away all these cut pieces, and I kept those. This was 4x4s that the high school was going to throw away. And I said, I'll take them, so it makes for free wood. So this whole little studio ended up costing me less than $100 to build. I like to build with a big skylight because we went to the Southwest one time and went inside Kiva's and saw how there's a circle underground with one light source from above. And that really affected my building. I thought, that's how I want to live. I want to have one light source in the middle above. It's a nice light to work by. For 10 years I was a news photographer, but then for 20 years I did a little magazine called Moonlight Chronicles. I did 77 issues of these, and I would travel around and draw pictures and write stories about my adventures. And that went on for 20 years. It had a sponsorship through a shoe company. And there used to be, you know, all 77 issues were on this wall. About 2.5 years ago I quit doing that.
You're not doing these anymore, so are you working or do you even have to?
Well, I don't really have to. I did a lot of paintings like this. I started doing paintings. But because my lifestyle, I don't have a mortgage, I don't have a car payment. All I'm really doing is keeping gas in my car and feeding myself. So it doesn't take much money to do that. And I have a little savings. If you can learn to live really tiny, it's not expensive.
And it's almost like you don't hold on to any possessions either.
No, a lot of my possessions are these 4 boxes of negatives and pictures from the photo years. There's all the Chronicle issues, right? 77 of them.
So you were just in here drawing?
Well, I traveled around, I even traveled around the world to do that magazine.
It's kind of a dream lifestyle for a lot of people.
I think I feel very fortunate, yeah. Yeah, I'm really lucky. I got to live my dream.
I don't know if it's to call you lucky, though. I feel like you chose to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe luck wasn't so much. A friend just told me, said, no, you made all those choices to do that. Yeah. Oh, this is a book about, see, there's the cabin I built when I was 15.
That's great.
This is the teepee I lived in. There's my daughter. The kids would come. For 2 summers, they lived in the teepee. And then I went to a willow hut. And as you can see, everything that I make is like, it isn't sloppy, it's really nice. This was a little blanket door, gravel front. I just was always really picky about making it nice. But this is a book, and of course it's actually, you know, been published as a book called Radical Simplicity, but this just kind of shows the early years of what went on. Got into tents. Because I was traveling so much, I started getting really good tents, and that's actually what I set up down here to live in, was these tents.
So were you chronicling your thoughts on
all ideas, you know. I wanted to make, the teepee I thought was too big, believe it or not. It was a 16-foot teepee. And very, you know, I had a lot of visitors, go see the guy that lives in the teepee. I was getting kind of sick of that, so I built this little hut. And the inside, you know, was super cozy. And it was more hidden. I let the weeds grow up all around it. I mean, the deer would even come inside. Check this out. Oh, wow. I had a deer I could feed carrots, and he actually stepped inside. Yeah, and then I went to the tent idea, the mountain tents. High quality tents.
And that didn't seem right, or?
Well, it's just that I was on the road, and I would pop the tent up while I was here. Yeah.
Okay, so this is that's a real temporary idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that worked while I was on the road so much. And then I was getting so many magazines and everything that I thought, I'm going to build one of these little beach shacks that I'd seen in Tiny Houses book. And it showed the Cape Cod beach houses with no overhang, and it was just shingles all the way. I love those things. So I built that.
Nice.
Lived in that for about a year, and then
what happened to that one?
It got broke into. They took this door right off and took like $5,000 worth of Leicas and Nikons and computer, and it actually had a little bedroom on the back.
So you liked it besides the security issue?
No, I didn't like it.
Oh, you didn't even like it?
I didn't like a square building, and I couldn't heat it very good in the winter. And so I started digging behind it. Here I am digging away to make a little bedroom. I dug it out and built this sort of round wooden hot tub shape. It's all wood.
What kind of wood?
Pine boards. And so this is the hole in the back of the room that you crawled through to go into that round structure. And then, of course, shortly after that, somebody crawled in that skylight and robbed me. Yeah, I was really bummed. But I thought, well, what am I going to do? I took that building down and just made a door right there. And eventually, of course, saw the Hobbit movies and made, like, you know, the porch with the little curved porch on it. And I've been in that ever since. That was, what, 15 years ago. That's when I went into the little Hobbit hole. Oh, the sun's coming out.
Nice, huh?
Yeah. Another word I like is hermits. Because I've studied, and it's hard to study hermits, it's all about religion, but those dudes, a lot of them went off to the mountains to live in a little cave or a little tiny homemade space, and they wanted peace from the madness of the world, and I very much feel that way. But what I like to do, instead of just, when I've actually visited some of those places, like, really, that's where he lived? Well, that's kind of boring. He didn't fix it up. You know, he didn't make it nice. He didn't make it cool. And then just this year, I did a little addition here. This little thing here was actually a little square underground room that I built right next to the little circle room. And I was going to attach them, and I never did attach to the two rooms. I never cut the hole between the two for 11 years. So that was just a storage unit. And this year I came home from being away for the winter and attached them. You guys want to look inside here? I wanted to live that way like a hermit, but also make it really cool, like the coolest kid fort that you have ever seen. So then you really are having fun, right? You want to come in here?
You want to come in?
Where?
His house.
How can you fit in there?
He gets in, you'll see. You'd have to take your shoes off if you want to go inside. It's his house.
His house?
Yeah.
What's pretty funny is when we lived in Kentucky before we came here, we were living in an Annabelle mansion. See the window up here? Yeah. It's huge. One of those old ones with the columns, many bathrooms, bedrooms, caretaking it for the college.
Oh, wow.
And so when I came back to Oregon, I'm like, whew, $500 a month to heat that thing. It was insane. And so came here, then I just kept transforming to simpler and simpler structures. So it's been fun to work through the transformation because I feel like the Hobbit hole is the best thing that I've lived in.
Do you like the house?
Yeah. Yes.
I like the idea of not having any furniture and having a space so small, because really when you think about the space that you're living in, what do you do there? You eat, you sleep, you read a book. That's sort of all you do in a house. So you don't really need a bunch of square footage. And I think it came from probably backpacking and spending a lot of time in tents. I liked that so much that I thought, wouldn't it be neat if you could just live that way?
This is a very nice place. Smell, sounds.
So I was wondering whether the design is, because I've seen it in several places.
I'm just sort of known as Hobo. It's an American vagabond type character. Yeah, so I got them on the doors, and it's kind of like everywhere, on the bell, and yeah.
I've seen it, yeah.
And then of course the meadow has been my biggest project of all. To me, it's my church. My big thing now is planting trees. So this property is like my personal church that I get to spend time in. So when I first came here, this was really kind of marshy and wet. And I stuck a shovel in the ground and discovered water was right here. And so there's a spring right where the mint is growing. And I have a little garden, the lettuce and spinach. This is some spearmint. This is actually one of the original spinach plants that was brought to America. Wild spinach called lamb's quarter. Totally edible and way more nutritious than what you buy in the store. So that's one of the things I've been drawing. I always do a little patch of garlic. I feel totally free here. I've got to do a grand experiment in living. So down by the river, we have a fire pit and a little dock. And this is the propane sauna. Just made from some pinewood, but it's pretty neat ceiling. I can light that, and there's a round metal pipe in there filled with lava rocks, and in about half an hour they're red hot. So this thing's probably 20 years old. You can see the top is starting to kind of... What I like about making things from recycled wood or kind of scrap wood, a good example is this dock, and also there's a little fence out there along the river that I've rebuilt probably 4 times. A lot of people would be annoyed by that. They're like, well, I'm going to use treated wood and get that thing built once and for all. But I've rebuilt this dock in different spots there. It's really fun to make things not permanent, because then I get to rebuild them every couple of years, and I get to build it different, and it isn't set in concrete. Yeah, these chairs, this is a really old one. This is from the teepee days there. Right from a piece of board, and you cut the hole in it, and...
So you make all your own furniture as well?
Yeah, that was just driftwood from the lake, and made that little Adirondack chair. It didn't cost me for the nails, right? This is kind of a little shed over here. These are the steps off my friend's house when they were remodeling. All the shingles you see down here on this place were gathered together from people just going to throw them away. That was a window that they were going to throw away in the house up on the hill. I like to build stuff so it looks like it's been here for 50 years. And then this is a ladder that goes up. You take your little bucket of water from the river and you fill that bucket up there. And I flip a switch, and there's a water heater in it, so it heats it up. And then the water comes out. You turn the electric off, and the water comes out hot.
That's great. So that's your shower?
Yeah, that's the shower. Use all biodegradable soap. This is a little propane heater that you heat the room in the winter. I just pushed this window out. I need to get some new boat vinyl. But, you know, yeah, I have boat vinyl on these windows in the winter, and this room heats up just fine, enough to take a shower in the winter. It's nice to live so rustic, but also be clean and healthy. This is a way to filter river water with 2 buckets. So I'll fill this with river water, and that's a filter that I've glued in there. And so the water drips down through that filter into the lower bucket, and then all the water in the lower bucket here is filtered. So that's filtered drinking water. I did that for years. I drank that water. Now I'm drinking out of my spring up here because the spring is so clean. And I set this up to brush my teeth or something, but I'm just not really drinking this water much anymore. The other thing that I've always said, it's like essential to have live water on your place, because look at this. I use it to drink, to bathe, to take a sauna. I really couldn't do this without a river because I'm not hooked up to city water. Homemade barbells out of coffee cans. I saw that in Mexico, made those. I don't know, it's probably 30 pounds. Keeps you in shape.
Yeah.
Every other day I run and come back and lift weights, get in the sauna. There's no stress.
I love how this tree is part of your shower.
That's how I like to build it, see, so that it just looks like man isn't even sort of here. And see that deer, these deer are born right in this area. That deer practically walk right up to me. And it's just really cool to share a space with a wild animal and not have them all freaking out that, oh my God, you know, what's he doing now? I just don't have motors down here. I don't have noisy. I never chase them away. I feel like it's more their place than mine. That sounds kind of corny, but I really do. By the way, we're living in Nez Perce country here, Chief Joseph land. I read all the books I could find on them when I first got here, and The Indians, they believed in living in round structures. I really like that one. They burnt their structures when they were done with them, something that I did on everything I lived in, because I just like that idea. Okay, you're done with it, you make it disappear. The hut was right there, and it was 9 by 12, and it cost me 75 bucks to build it. It didn't cost me, I wasn't signing a mortgage to a $200,000 house. Now, so I was able, when I removed it, I just removed it and burned it. Now, I wouldn't do that to a house, you know. And the other thing that I like about living this way is it's not permanent. There's no concrete poured anywhere down here. And how about that idea? Most people, first of all, they'd buy this piece of property, and then they'd come in with a bulldozer and level a place out and start pouring a concrete foundation before they'd even lived on the place to know how the sun works and how the seasons work, where the wind comes from. So I lived down in the middle of the meadow, then I lived here, and I thought, hold it, if I live up into that hillside, I'm protected from the wind and the storms more, and it won't even get a lot of rain through those trees. I got to experience what nature was doing down here and adjust my living space, and now my living space isn't down here in the hot sun, it's clear up there in the hillside where we used to park the bikes.
Did you get in?
Yeah, I did. Do you like it?
Yeah.
It's cool, huh?
And Mom,
Yeah.
there's no creatures.
Creatures? What do you mean creatures?
Like animals. Animals.
Inside?
Yeah.
Well, does it look like it should be a home for animals?
What do you think about it?
What?
You like it? Nessie? It's quite special.
I stayed close to my family even though we were divorced. I helped raise the kids and did vacations with the kids. Like they spent 2 summers here living in the teepee. Now, what I always proposed when they were younger was, yo, come and live in the meadow. I'll make another hut for you. And the kids were like, no, because their friends would have thought that was weird. It's kind of getting munched. It's kind of melting. But used to be able to, that's my daughter when she was about 12. I don't have a lot of friends, and it's been good because they do influence you, and then you follow what they do. So I've never really been a follower. These are old family pictures on a lampshade. Yeah, these are my parents. My mom passed away this last winter. This is her little shrine. And my son, Shane, made me something to hold her ashes. Yeah, I have very few things, but the things that I have are very meaningful. This is something I made in high school, right? This is an old painting I found in Kentucky. One of the last days I was there, it's like a folk art painting that I've always really liked. And in here, I think I put it in here before I put the roof on. So it's not going out. This is a little doodad I got in Tokyo when I was going around the world. Every year these swallowtail butterflies fly around the meadow, and every fall I find one, or at least one of the wings. This one was whole. My son, he made me this knife. You know, coming from the photography days, I learned how to edit, and I think I've edited my life all along. This is a fun thing that kids might like to do. Get bottles and fill them with stuff, and then put little labels on them. This is pine tree pollen, little specimen bottles of local hikings. There's one here somewhere, there's a stick from New Zealand where they made the Hobbit movies. In 2006 I went there, but I got to go see where they did the movie and had the little hobbit holes. These are steel drums called hand pans. Doesn't sound real good in here. My latest passion is playing the music and trying to keep my life as simple as possible so I can just do that. So, you know, early on, my partner and I remember one day we were sitting there going, the secret to life is having a very few things, but the things you have are like really killer. Get a teepee, a really good teepee, and live in the teepee. You only have a few things, but everything is really special. And I've always held on to that philosophy.
Yeah, people? Besamida.
I think the biggest thing that I want to say is about, you know, wanting to just be a kid again.
Ah.
Yeah.
Why there's no animals inside?
Why are there no animals inside? Because you guys are inside. You scare them away. Maybe they'd come if you weren't here. He said his other house, a deer used to pop its head in. Do you guys want to live in a house like this?
Houston.
Yeah?
I never really did want to be an adult.
Oh, careful.
I don't want to be an adult. I want to go back and be like I was as a child, where you're just, your days are free. You know, that was a magical time for all of us. And I think that after all the work I've done with the magazines and everything, I'm just now getting back to that thing where I can just play music, cut some hay, run, swim, travel, and even explore this space, which I can spend a whole week down here and be just perfectly content. But it's so cool. You feel like an old-time farmer cutting it down, and then you rake it. You rake it into rows just like a regular farmer does until it dries. And then I hump it up into piles, and then I can use it for the top of the studio. And mostly it's kind of deer food in the winter. The rubber part.
Yeah. The rubber part?
Yeah, you hit it with the rubber part.
That's his doorbell.
I really liked being a kid, and I miss that. I miss those years. Yeah, because they're so, being an adult's so crazy, raising kids, making money, it's just way too stressful. And when you're a kid, there wasn't any stress, so I don't want to have security. Security's a myth. We don't really have security. You could be hit by a car tomorrow. And so to say, well, I'm going to create security and protect myself from the world is, we all do that to a certain extent. But if I don't have security, my life becomes way more adventuresome. When I'm hanging out in a modern house and a shower is taken for granted, it's not appreciated anymore. So if you start getting rid of all the securities in your life, you appreciate all these little things like a hot shower, a meal. To me, having way less makes life way more of an adventure. See the little baby deer up there? This crop this year has been very friendly. I'll wake up and open the door in the morning and they're standing right on the bricks there. I guess where the security comes in is when you have all the accoutrements of modern day life, you really don't appreciate it anymore. It just becomes a hassle to try and keep it all going. But when I heard the sound, so I don't have a trouble keeping all this going. Everything that I do is a joy, and that's the way it ought to be.